Welcome to another journey through time. Tonight, we drift into the golden sands of ancient Egypt. Close your eyes. Feel your breath moving slowly in and out, like the calm rhythm of the great Nile River. More than 5,000 years ago, on the banks of this eternal river, a civilization began to rise. It was simple at first. Farmers sowing seeds, families gathering water in clay pots, children laughing under the warm Egyptian sun. But slowly, quietly, this small life grew into something greater. The Nile flooded every year, covering the land with rich, dark soil, a gift from the gods. With this soil, the Egyptians grew wheat, barley, flax. Their harvests gave them strength, and with strength came time for art, for temples, for dreams. Imagine the river at twilight, golden light, dancing across its waters, boats gliding slowly, their sails catching the evening wind, fishermen pulling in their nets, women grinding grain, children chasing each other along the riverbanks. Life was peaceful, steady, calm. The Egyptians believed this balance was divine, that the river itself was a God's gift. They gave thanks in prayers and offerings. They lit oil lamps at night, watched the stars, and believed each star was a sign of eternity. In time, villages grew larger, families became towns, and towns became kingdoms. Two great lands rose along the Nile. Upper Egypt stretched across the southern valleys, and Lower Egypt lay in the northern delta, where the Nile met the wide blue sea. For centuries, these two lands stood apart, but then came a ruler, a man of destiny, a king named Narmer, who would unite the two lands into one. He wore a crown unlike any other, white for Upper Egypt, red for Lower Egypt, joined together into a single symbol of unity. From that moment, Egypt was one kingdom, a land of strength, a land of timeless promise. And so began the story of pharaohs, kings who ruled not only as leaders, but as gods among men. Every decision, every command was believed to be divine. Their names would be carved in stone. Their temples would touch the skies. As you listen, let your body grow heavy, like the stones of ancient temples. Let your thoughts drift slowly, like the Nile, flowing calmly under moonlight. This was the beginning, the dawn of ancient Egypt, a world shaped by water, by sand, and by stars. Close your eyes and rest, for this journey has only just begun. Rest deeper now, your breath calm, your mind soft, as we move further into the heart of ancient Egypt. The land had been united, the Nile flowed steady, and the people looked to their pharaoh, not just as a king, but as a god, walking among them. The pharaoh's word was law, his presence sacred. Every temple, every stone, every grain of wheat belonged to him, and yet he was not feared, he was honored, for the Egyptians believed his rule kept the universe in balance. They called this balance Ma'at, order, harmony, truth. The pharaoh's duty was to protect Ma'at, to make sure the Nile continued to flow, the sun to rise, and the people to live in peace. In those days, the Old Kingdom began, a time of greatness, of wonder, of eternal monuments. Imagine the desert, endless golden sand, the sky, deep and clear, and rising above the horizon. A shape so perfect, so timeless. The pyramids. Built stone by stone, by thousands of hands, each block heavier than the weight of 10 men, yet lifted, aligned, placed with precision. No machines, no iron tools, only human strength and human devotion. The Great Pyramid of Giza rose higher than any building on earth. For more than 3,000 years, it was a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu. But it was more than a tomb. It was a promise that the Pharaoh would live forever. Inside the pyramid, narrow passages twist through the stone, dark corridors, echoes of footsteps, torches flickering against the walls. At the heart, a chamber, silent, sacred, where the pharaoh's body would rest. But the Egyptians believed death was not the end. It was a doorway, a passage to another world. To reach it, the pharaoh needed treasures, food, clothes, gold, and prayers whispered by priests for eternity. Outside the pyramids stood the great Sphinx, a lion's body, with a human face, silent, watching, its eyes forever fixed on the horizon, guarding the tombs, guarding the pharaohs, guarding the mystery of Egypt. Life around the pyramids was busy. Workers built homes from mud brick. Children fetched water from the Nile. Priests offered incense to the gods. And at night, under the stars, songs of labor echoed across the desert. Soft, steady, like the heartbeat of Egypt. The Old Kingdom was not only about stone, it was also about faith. Temples were raised to honor Ra, the sun god, to Osiris, ruler of the afterlife, to Isis, mother of magic, and to Horus, the falcon, symbol of kingship. The people lived with these gods. They prayed to them. In fields and in homes, they offered bread, beer, and flowers, and in return, they asked only for the Nile to flood, for the harvest to grow, and for their families to remain safe. As you hear these words, feel your own breath become steady, like the river's gentle current, your body heavy, like the stones of the pyramids, your thoughts drifting, like desert winds across the sand. This was the Old Kingdom, the age of pyramids, the age of eternal stone, a time when Egypt reached for the skies and touched the stars. Close your eyes. Let the silence deepen as we journey further into the heart of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians did not see their gods as distant beings. They saw them everywhere, in the rising of the sun, in the flooding of the Nile, in the stars, and in the very breath of life. At dawn, the people looked east. They watched the horizon glow with fire, and they whispered the name of Ra, the sun god, the giver of light, of warmth, of life. They believed. Each morning, Ra sailed his golden boat across the sky, and each night he descended into darkness, battling chaos, before rising again with the dawn. In the fertile fields, farmers honored Osiris, Lord of the afterlife, but also a god of rebirth. When the Nile flooded, its waters brought new soil, new harvests, new hope. To the Egyptians, this was Osiris's gift, proof that life could return even after death. Beside Osiris stood Isis, wife, mother, protector. She was magic itself. Her love could heal wounds. Her voice could calm storms. Mothers prayed to Isis to protect their children. Sailors prayed to her to guide them safely across the Nile. And then there was Horus, the falcon god, sharp-eyed, soaring high above the earth. He was the symbol of kingship. The pharaoh was said to be Horus on earth. His throne, the falcon's wings, his crown, touched by the gods. Temples, priests worked day and night, not for the people, but for the gods themselves. They woke the statues each morning, washed them, dressed them, offered food, wine, and incense. They whispered prayers, chanted hymns, and filled the air with music. The temples were not places for ordinary people. They were sacred homes, built only for gods, grand courtyards, giant pillars carved with stories, walls painted with bright colors, and deep inside, hidden in the shadows, was the sanctuary, a small chamber, dark, silent, where the god's statue rested, where only priests and the pharaoh could enter. At festivals, the gods left their temples, statues carried on golden boats, gliding through the streets, crowds singing, drums echoing, incense rising into the air. The people reached out their hands, crying for blessings, crying for protection, crying for hope. Tati. The Egyptians believed in an eternal journey. When death came, it was not the end. It was a passage. The soul, known as the Ka, would leave the body, but it still needed food, water, and prayers. That is why tombs were filled with offerings, jars of grain, loaves of bread, clay jars of beer, even tiny statues called ushabti, who would serve the soul in the afterlife. But before entering the afterlife, every soul faced judgment in a great hall before the god Osiris. The heart of the dead was placed on a scale balanced against the feather of Ma'at, the feather of truth. If the heart was pure, lighter than the feather, the soul could pass into paradise, a land of fields and rivers, where life continued in peace. But if the heart was heavy, full of lies and sins, it was devoured, destroyed forever, by a beast called Amit, part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus. This belief shaped their lives. Every act, every word was measured against Ma'at. To live in truth, to live in balance, meant eternal life. As you hear these words, let your breath grow slower. Inhale, as if Ra is rising in his golden boat. Exhale, as if the Nile flows gently past your side. Your body rests like a temple carved in stone. Your mind drifts like incense rising into the sky. This was the faith of ancient Egypt, a faith that touched every home, every field, every life, a faith that promised that nothing truly ends, that all things rise again. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and imagine yourself walking through the streets of ancient Egypt. It is early morning. The sun rises over the desert horizon, casting golden light on mud brick houses, on palm trees swaying gently by the river. The air is warm, but soft, and the world is slowly waking. In a small home, built of clay, a family begins their day. The father, a farmer, ties his linen cloth and prepares to walk toward the fields. The mother grinds grain, her hands pressing the heavy stone, turning wheat into flour. Children laugh softly, chasing each other, their voices carrying through the narrow streets. Most Egyptians lived simple lives. Their homes were small. Their meals were plain: bread baked from barley, beer brewed from grain, onions, beans, and dates. Sweet gifts from the Nile. But in every home, there was faith, a small shrine, clay figures of protective gods, offerings of flowers or bread, placed with quiet devotion. The Nile was the center of everything. It gave water for crops, fish for food, and reeds for boats and baskets. Each year, the river flooded. When it rose, the people rejoiced, because the flood meant life. Fields turned green again, harvests would come, families would eat. Walk further into the village, and you hear the sound of tools. Craftsmen are at work. A potter spins his wheel, shaping clay with careful hands. A carpenter smooths wood, building furniture for a wealthy home. A weaver ties threads, forming linen cloth, white and soft. Each craft, each skill, a gift passed down through generations. In the marketplace, the air is alive. Traders call out, offering baskets of figs, garlic, honey, and salt. Fishermen carry their catch, shimmering fish laid on reed mats. Children run between stalls, their laughter mixing with the hum of voices. The smell of bread drifts through the air, and the Nile breeze keeps the market cool. Yet life was not equal. The wealthy lived differently. Nobles wore fine linen, adorned with jewelry of gold and turquoise. Their homes were larger, with painted walls and gardens. Servants brought water, and music filled their halls. While most people worked under the sun, the elite lived in shade and luxury. Still, all Egyptians shared one truth. They lived under the watch of Pharaoh, his image carved in temples, his name written on papyrus, his presence felt even in the smallest village. The Pharaoh was more than a king. He was a living god, protector of Ma'at, keeper of balance. Children learned early obedience, respect, and work. Some were taught to read and write, but only the lucky few. Most children helped their families. Boys learned to farm, fish, or craft. Girls helped in the home, grinding grain, fetching water, caring for siblings. Play was simple: wooden dolls, clay balls, toy animals, but joy was real, carried in every smile. As the sun climbed high, farmers worked in the fields, bent backs, steady hands. Oxen pulled plows, water wheels lifted river water. The heat was heavy, but life depended on the harvest. When evening came, the sky turned crimson over the desert. Families gathered again, a meal of bread, beans, and fish. Stories told by firelight, songs sung softly as children drifted to sleep. Above them, the stars of Egypt shone bright, the same stars that guided priests and pharaohs, the same stars that watched over pyramids. Daily life was not filled with riches, not filled with endless glory. It was filled with rhythm, the rhythm of rising with the sun, working with the Nile, and resting under the stars. And in that rhythm, there was peace, a peace that carried the people of Egypt through centuries of history. As you rest now, let your breath follow their rhythm. Inhale with the sunrise. Exhale with the setting sun. Feel the calm of their simple lives, guiding you into dreams where the Nile still flows and the stars still shine. Close your eyes, let your body rest, and imagine the land of ancient Egypt once again. The river Nile flows, calm and eternal. The golden sun shines over temples and fields, and at the center of this world is the pharaoh. The pharaoh was not seen as an ordinary king. He was believed to be chosen by the gods, a living god himself, a bridge between the divine and the mortal. When people spoke of Pharaoh, they spoke with reverence, with awe, for his word was law, and his presence was sacred. Each pharaoh carried the weight of Ma'at, the sacred balance of the universe, order over chaos, truth over lies, harmony over destruction. To rule Egypt was to guard Ma'at. Imagine now the coronation of a pharaoh. The temple bells echo softly. Priests chant sacred hymns. Incense drifts through the air. the scent of myrrh and frankincense filling the hall. The pharaoh steps forward, draped in linen, crowned with the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. The people bow their heads, and in that moment, the pharaoh becomes divine. He carries the crook and flail, symbols of kingship, one for guidance, one for power, a shepherd to his people, and a guardian of their lives. Pharaohs commanded armies when danger came from deserts or seas. They led warriors into battle. Chariots thundered across the sands. Bows sang with arrows. But the people believed. It was the pharaoh's spirit that gave victory. They built temples and monuments, carved their names into stone, not to boast, but to ensure they would live forever. For in Egypt, memory was immortality. As long as their name was spoken, they would never truly die. Pharaohs like Ramses, who raised statues so tall that the desert winds still whisper his power, or Hatshepsut, a woman who ruled as king, building temples of breathtaking beauty, or Akhenaten, who turned his face toward one God and changed Egypt's faith for a brief moment. Each pharaoh was different. Some ruled with wisdom and peace, others with ambition and war, but all were remembered, written in hieroglyphs, painted on walls, carved deep into obelisks. Life under the pharaoh was guided by ceremony, festivals in his honor, priests offering prayers in his name. Even the stars were seen as his allies. For the pharaoh's destiny was tied to the heavens. When a pharaoh died, the world wept, but his journey did not end. It only began, for the pharaoh was eternal. His body was preserved with care, wrapped in linen, placed in a golden sarcophagus, surrounded by treasures. To guide him through the afterlife, servants carved prayers into his tomb walls, scenes of his triumphs, his offerings to the gods, his rebirth in the land of eternity. The people believed that even in death, the pharaoh watched over them, rising with the sun each day, guiding the Nile's floods, protecting their harvest, and ensuring Ma'at remained strong. Close your eyes and imagine standing before a great temple. The statues of Pharaoh rise high above you, eyes gazing forward, unmoving, eternal. You feel small beneath their shadow, but also safe. For these kings, these gods on earth, were guardians of their people in every age. The pharaoh was more than flesh and blood. He was a dream made real, the dream of Egypt, of power, of order, of eternity. And as the stars rise above the Nile, and as the desert grows silent, the spirit of the pharaoh still lingers, watching, guiding, protecting. So rest now, let your breath be steady, feel the peace of Ma'at around you, and dream of Egypt, where kings walked as gods, and gods walked among men. Close your eyes. Let your breath be slow, steady, and drift with me back to ancient Egypt. The Nile flows in silence, the desert stretches endlessly, and on the horizon, a temple rises. Stone walls glimmer beneath the sun, massive columns carved with sacred signs, hieroglyphs telling stories of gods and kings. The temple is not just a building, it is a bridge, a doorway between the mortal world and the divine. Inside, the air is cool. Dim light flickers from oil lamps. The scent of incense drifts softly, and every sound seems to echo, as if the gods themselves are listening. Here, priests walk in silence. They are guardians of sacred knowledge, keepers of ritual, masters of prayer. Every morning, before the sun rises, the priests awaken. They wash themselves in pure water, dress in white linen, and step quietly into the temple halls. They chant hymns. They light incense. They open the shrine of the god, and they speak words of devotion, so that the god may awaken with the sun. In Thebes, the temple of Karnak rises high, its columns stretch to the sky, like a forest of stone. Here, priests honor Amun, the hidden one, the god of creation, the father of all. In Memphis, the great temple of Ptah stands strong. Ptah, the craftsman god, the one who shaped the world with his words. Here, artisans pray for skill, builders ask for strength, and sculptors beg for inspiration. In Heliopolis, the temple of Ra glows with the rising sun. Ra, the sun god, who sails across the heavens by day and journeys through the underworld by night. Priests lift their arms to greet him, and the people believe that his light gives life to all. Every god had a temple. Every temple had its priests, and every priest had a duty to maintain Mayat, the sacred balance of the world. The rituals were precise, the words were exact, for if they were done wrongly, chaos might enter the land. The Nile might fail to flood, the crops might wither, and the people might suffer. So, the priests devoted their lives to service. They studied the stars, measured the floods, kept calendars of festivals, and spoke the sacred prayers, not for themselves, but for Egypt. Festivals filled the year. The people gathered in joy. They sang, they danced, they prayed. One of the greatest was the Opet festival in Thebes. During this festival, the statue of Amun was carried from Karnak down the Nile to Luxor Temple. Boats decorated with gold and flowers drifted on the water. Priests chanted, musicians played, and the people cheered with devotion. Another was the festival of Hathor, goddess of joy and love. People offered music, wine, and laughter. For Hathor was the mother of delight. She was the goddess who welcomed souls into the afterlife with kindness and compassion. Inside the temples, there were libraries too, papyrus scrolls filled with sacred texts, hymns to the gods, ritual instructions, records of the stars, knowledge guarded for centuries, passed only to the chosen. The priests were healers as well. They mixed herbs, whispered prayers, and used the wisdom of both medicine and magic. For in Egypt, the line between the two was thin. When night came, the temples glowed with torchlight. Priests sang hymns to guide the sun through the underworld. They prayed for the pharaoh's safety, for the harvest to be strong, and for the gods to protect their land. Imagine standing in such a temple, the columns towering above you, the walls painted with gods and stars, the air heavy with incense, the sound of distant chants, calm, deep, eternal. You feel as if time has slowed, as if the world outside does not exist. Here, in this sacred place, there is only silence, only peace, only the presence of the gods. The priests knew that Egypt's strength was not just in its armies or its pharaohs, but in its faith. Faith in the gods, faith in the order of Ma'at, faith that the universe had meaning. And as the desert winds whisper through the temple halls, and as the stars shine above the Nile, you realize that these temples were not just for the people of Egypt. They were for eternity, built to last forever, so that the gods would always walk beside mankind. So rest now, let your body be still, your mind be calm, and dream of Egypt, where temples touch the sky, and the gods listen to every prayer. Close your eyes, breathe in slowly, and as you breathe out, imagine yourself drifting down the Nile, but this time, not in the land of the living, instead, into the realm beyond. For the Egyptians believed that death was not an end. It was a doorway, a passage into another life, more eternal, more vast, more mysterious. When a person died, their soul began a great journey, a journey through the underworld, through shadow and light, through trials and tests, until it reached the hall of judgment. The Egyptians believed the soul had many parts: the Ka, the life force, the Ba, the spirit, free to travel, and the Ak, the eternal self, shining like the stars. To protect these parts, the body was preserved. Through mummification, the flesh was dried and wrapped, the heart left in place, for it would one day be weighed. Imagine the tomb, deep beneath the earth, silent, cool, eternal, walls painted with sacred images, gods with animal heads, pharaohs standing tall, stars glittering across dark ceilings. In the tomb, food and drink were placed, amulets of gold, weapons, tools, even games, for the dead would need them in the world beyond. And so the soul began its journey. It passed through caverns of darkness. It met creatures with sharp teeth and fiery eyes. It sailed upon boats of light, guided by prayers and spells from the Book of the Dead. On the Book of the Dead, not truly a book, but a collection of spells, written on papyrus, placed in the tomb, whispered by priests, so the soul would know the way at last. The soul entered the hall of judgment before Osiris, the lord of the underworld. Osiris, wrapped in white, crowned with green, the god who had died and yet lived again. Beside him, Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe, holding his tablet. Anubis, the jackal-headed guide, guarding the scales. And Amit, the devourer, part crocodile, part lion, part hippopotamus, waiting in silence. The heart of the dead was placed on the scales. On the other side, the feather of Ma'at, the feather of truth, balance, and justice. If the heart was heavy, filled with lies, cruelty, or selfishness, it sank. Amit devoured it, and the soul ceased to exist. But if the heart was light, As light as the feather, then the soul was free, free to enter the field of reeds, a perfect reflection of Egypt itself. In the field of reeds, the Nile flowed forever. The crops never failed. The air was gentle. The sun always shone. Families were reunited. Life continued in peace. Pharaohs too took this journey, but their tombs were vast, filled with treasures, golden masks, chariots, jewels that glittered like stars, all meant to guide them to eternity. The Valley of the Kings, silent and hidden, holds these tombs, carved deep into the mountains, passages painted with stars, hieroglyphs glowing in torchlight. And as the pharaoh journeyed through the underworld, the people believed. He joined Ra on his boat of the sun. Together, they fought the serpent Apophis, the force of chaos, every night, every dawn, until light triumphed again. The afterlife was not fear. It was hope, hope that life continued, hope that the Nile would never dry, hope that the gods welcomed the soul with kindness. Even ordinary people dreamed of this eternal land. They wrote letters to their dead. They left offerings at tombs. They whispered prayers, so their loved ones would never walk alone. So imagine now that you walk among the stars, that you sail upon Ra's golden boat, the river of eternity carrying you forward, your heart light, your spirit calm, your soul free. The desert is silent. The pyramids stand tall. The Nile flows endlessly. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the field of reeds waits. So rest now. Let your thoughts drift. Let your breath slow. For like the Egyptians believed, there is no end, only a journey into peace, into eternity.